Okay, welcome to part one of my Arduino Introduction to Arduino series of videos. This particular video is going to be taking a look at the first view of the Arduino IDE. So this is a video for people who have never programmed anything in Arduino before. So if you have not already done so, you do need to go to arduino.cc and download the appropriate file for your computer and install the Arduino IDE on your computer. Once it is installed, you should open it up, and this is the screen you should see. At the time of recording, I'm working in Arduino version 1.6.8. So what you are seeing on the screen is a basic framework of a program, or in the Arduino community they're referred to as sketches. So for this sketch, there are actually two functions that are defined here. The first one is void setup. The word void declares that this is a function, and the name is setup. Everything that occurs between the two curly braces is what happens in setup. And again, as the comment indicates, a setup is run once. So this is where it is going to set up your initial pieces of code that will be used throughout your program. The next function that is described here is void loop. And basically, loop is going to execute repeatedly over and over again as long as your Arduino board has power. So whether from a battery or from an external power supply, this code is going to continue to be executed. So before we begin, there's one piece of housework I'd like to take care of. That is to turn on your line numbers. So if you come into Preferences and put a check mark in this box here that says Display Line Numbers and click OK, it'll turn on the line numbers, and then you can actually see which line of code you may be dealing with. And this is really helpful once you start getting into code that is several hundred lines long and you're trying to figure out what is going on, how to debug, and so on. So the first thing I want to do is set up our LED on our board. So if you've followed the fritzing image that is on the website, you should have already plugged in your LED with a long leg on pin 13 and the short leg on ground. So your long leg is positive and your short leg is negative. And what we want to do is tell our board what we are going to be doing. So we're going to use a command called pin mode. The M is capital. And we want to go through and say pin 13 is going to be an output. So once we do that, our board now knows that it is an output rather than an input. The default is input. So it's not always necessary to indicate that you are using an input, but you must indicate when you are using an output. The next thing we want to do is tell pin 13 to just turn my light on. So we're going to use a command called digital write. And the W is capitalized. We're going to say digital write to pin 13, and we're going to say hi. So instead of on and off or 1 or 0, Arduino uses high and low. Once we have this, this is enough to be a program. And so if we go through and we, before we can upload it though, we need to check and make sure we have our correct board. So if we go to Tools, we come down to Board, we want to make sure that there's a dot in front of the Arduino Uno. We also want to check our port. We want, on my computer, I'm on COM4, and there's a check mark in front of the COM file that I'm COM port I'm connected to. So make sure that check mark is present. If not, click it and put the check mark there. Once you've done this, our communication will work between our board and our computer. And if you hit the forward arrow, it will upload. But first, it's going to ask you to name it. So we're going to call it First Sketch. And when we do this, it'll go through, it'll start compiling our sketch, it'll upload our sketch to our board, and now my light should just simply be turned on. Okay, so you're probably thinking to yourself, I didn't need a microcontroller to do that, and you didn't. But the point here is to start looking at how we can use code to affect physical computing. So let's go ahead and take this one step further. So the first sketch that any Arduino user ever does is the blink sketch. So what we're going to do is set this up so that it blinks. And we need to break down that process into very specific, deliberate steps. So I'm going to start by using some pseudocode with some comments. So my first line, of course, is to turn on the LED. We've already done that. Well, what we want to do for a blink is we want it to turn on for a short period of time. Let's say 1 second. So we're going to wait 1 second. And then we want to go through and turn it off. And then wait with it off again for a short period of time. So we'll say 1 second. And so this way your pseudocode tells you exactly what you want to do in the program, step by step. And what your task is to then go back through and put in the proper code to make that happen. So the code to wait for 1 second is a command called delay. And it is measured in milliseconds. So with milliseconds, there's 1,000 of them in 1 second. So we're going to go ahead in parentheses and put 1,000 for 1 second. And for this, we're going to turn it off. So instead of high, we want to put low, all caps, put your semicolon. And then finally, wait another 1 second. Once this has all been input correctly, we can go ahead and hit upload. It's going to check our sketch, compile it for us, upload it to our board, and now we should have our light blinking on and off with a 1 second delay in between each action. So you can go ahead and you can play with those delay times and mess with that a little bit and change it up some. What we're going to do next is in the next part, in part 2 of this video series, we're going to look at how we can introduce variables to this program, as well as add a button so you can turn the light on and off utilizing the button with your code. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.